In the summer of 1943, RAF Bomber Command was deep in its campaign against Germany. Night after night, hundreds of young men climbed aboard their Lancasters and vanished into the dark, knowing many would never return. One of those aircraft was Lancaster ED603 of 83 Squadron, a Pathfinder Lancaster based at RAF Wyton. This is a story of her final flight, of the men who flew her, the crash that claimed them, and how 80 years later they were finally brought home. On the night of the 12th of June 1943, 12 aircraft from 83 Squadron took off from RAF Wyton for operations over the industrial city of Bochum, deep in the Ruhr Valley. Among them was Lancaster ED603, crewed by Flight Lieutenant Eric Arthur Tilbury, who was a pilot, aged 25. Pilot Officer Harold Elvin Howson, the navigator, aged 31. Pilot Officer Arthur Gordon Fletcher, the bomb aimer, aged 20. Pilot Officer Raymond Edward Moore, the wireless operator, aged 21. Pilot Officer Arthur Bertram Smart, the flight engineer, aged 29. Pilot Officer Charles Frederick John Sprack, the mid-upper gunner, aged 23. And Flying Officer Gordon Robert Sugar, the rear gunner, aged 22. 7 men, skilled, decorated, trusted members of the Pathfinder force, whose role was to mark the target for the bombers that followed. The weather that night was far from ideal, with cloud around 10,000 feet, but visibility above it remained good. Target indicators were well placed, and the raid went ahead as planned. Flak over Bochum was fierce. Shells burst all around the formation, and somewhere over the target, ED603 was hit. Damage to the port wing forced the aircraft to fall out of formation, but the crew managed to turn for home. Then, over the Netherlands, their luck ran out. As a damaged Lancaster crossed the Dutch coast, it was intercepted by a German night fighter flown by Hauptmann Rudolf Sigmund. His cannon fire ripped through the aircraft, igniting a fire that swept down the fuselage. Witnesses on the ground later described seeing a burning bomber spiralling out of the night sky before crashing into the IJsselmeer, the vast inland lake north of Amsterdam. There were no parachutes, no survivors. Lancaster ED603 and her 7-man crew were gone. In the days that followed, the waters of the IJsselmeer gave back their dead. Pilot Officer Arthur Gordon Fletcher, just 20 years old, was found washed ashore. He was laid to rest at Workum General Cemetery. Soon after came his crewmates. Flight Lieutenant Eric Arthur Tilbury, buried at Starven General Cemetery. He was just 25 years old. Flying Officer Gordon Robert Sugar was buried at Hinderloopen Protestant Churchyard, age just 22. Pilot Officer Harold Elvin Howson, buried beside Fletcher at Workum, aged just 31. 4 men recovered, 3 still missing. For the families of Smart, Moore and Sprack, there were no graves to visit, only their names carved into stone on the Runnymede Memorial to the missing. That changed decades later. In 1996, a Dutch fishing boat snagged its nets on something heavy beneath the surface. When the crew hauled it up, they found a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine and propeller, identified as part of Lancaster ED603. It was the first sign of the missing aircraft, but the wreck lay deep and largely untouched, secrets hidden beneath silt and water. Then, in 2023, a full recovery operation began. Joint Aircraft Recovery and Transport Squadron, known as JARTS, worked alongside the Royal Netherlands Air Force, constructed a massive cofferdam around the site. Water was pumped away, exposing the remains of Lancaster for the first time since 1943. Twisted aluminium, scorched fragments and instruments, a bomber frozen in time. Among the wreckage, 3 sets of remains. They were identified as Pilot Officer Arthur Bertram Smart, Pilot Officer Raymond Edward Moore, and Pilot Officer Charles Frederick John Sprack, each the holder of the Distinguished Flying Medal. 80 years after their final flight, they had been found. On the 9th of October 2025, the 3 men were finally laid to rest beside their comrades at Workum General Cemetery. Their coffins, draped in the Union Jack, carried by serving members of the Royal Air Force. The ceremony was attended by Dutch officials, local residents, veterans, and the families of the crew. As the last post was echoed across the cemetery, the 7 men of Lancaster ED603 were finally laid to rest after more than 80 years. The story of Lancaster ED603 is one of courage, loss and remembrance. 7 men who took off into the night and never came home. Today, all 7 rest in Dutch soil, their sacrifice remembered by 2 nations, and their names spoken once more. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Every message helps keep the memory of these airmen alive, lest we forget. If you like listening to the stories of the history of those who came before, then please give the video a like and subscribe to keep updated about future videos of the history of those who came before.